How do you see agriculture faring under either a re-elected Obama administration or a newly elected Romney administration?
Figuring out who's answering these questions. First of all, farm policy historically has been congressional. Except for the New Deal, most farm policy was really formulated by Congress, and I think that actually is important. I think without that, you would see much weaker farm policy. So, Pat's leadership and others, I think, has, had a lot to do with it. Look, I repeat the fact that in terms of farm policy itself, I don't see a profound difference, with the following exception. And Pat would know more about this. Congressman Ryan's budget calls for significant discretionary spending cuts in the government. That would undoubtedly affect agriculture. How much? I don't know. Would it affect agriculture research at a time when we need to have a concentrated effort on drought-resistant crops, new technologies to feed the world? That takes resources. Our agriculture today is largely strong because of our land-grant college efforts, our agricultural research infrastructure. Those programs are cut dramatically. Future generations are going to be affected by weaker agriculture. I think my impression is the Obama administration has done a very good job at administering the current farm program. I don't hear a lot of complaints about that any more than I might have heard in previous years. So I would say I would doubt that on the administration of programs itself, there will be very much difference in terms of implementing congressional action on the farm programs. I am worried about the research budget and our commitment to, look, we're going to have 2 billion more people on this planet in the next 25 years. Whether you believe in climate change or not, the weather is extremely variable, and farmers have to be helped in ways to adapt to those weather changes, which means is that you got to have an adequately funded research budget. In terms of trade and exports, as I said, we have the highest ag exports in history right now. So I assume that I would hope that both administrations would do those kinds of things. But I'm actually worried about the research budget as much as anything else. The percentage of the only research budgets that are really going up are the Pentagon and the National Institutes of Health. Ag research in real terms has been falling every single year for the last years when you take out inflation. And it's a function of not having a lot of money in our federal governments, to be honest with you. But we largely still lead the world in innovation and technology and in agriculture, largely because of our research funding. And we've got to make sure that those resources are continuing. And quite frankly, personally, I'm worried about the budgets in the future and whether those budgets will be protected. And so I think I made my point on that.
Yeah?
What was the question?
How do you see agriculture?
I got it. Well, I'm a member, as Dan would be on the other side, on an advisory group in regards to agriculture with the Romney campaign. I tried to stress that any farm program policy should be market-oriented. I also stressed exactly what Dan talked about in regards to ag research, and really the big issue here is not so much a farm program or farm program policy or this, that, or the other, or all the criticism we get in the national media. The big issue that I've tried to stress, and it's been, I think, pretty consistent among most of the Aggies, most of the farm groups, most of the commodity organizations. As Dan pointed out, we've got to feed 9 billion people in the next couple of decades. That's an incredible task. We have to double our ag production at the same time. How are you going to do that without the proper ag research? And it gets into not only feeding our country in a troubled and hungry world, but also an issue of national security. Show me a country that cannot feed itself, and I'll show you chaos. Dan mentioned that my daughter used to work in the World Food Program, teaches at George Washington now and all that. And she's been all over the world, and it comes back to the basic fact is that if the United States is going to continue in its effort both on a humanitarian basis and on a strategic basis It's our best interest to really step up to the plate and get that job done and have at least some degree of certainty and some degree of a program. As I say, I'm really trying to focus on crop insurance. You can talk about loan rates, target prices, whatever you want to talk about. If you don't have a crop, I mean, what are you going to do? Later down the road, I do have a secret list of what the Obama administration may consider should they be reelected or should the president be reelected. If you're interested in that, I'll be happy to give it to you.
Okay.
It's got your initials on it. DG, at any rate. First, number 10, expand the EPA's permitting process for applying approved pesticides to now require applicants to supply 10 years of tax returns. Number 9, resurrect the EPA's plan to regulate spilled milk, and they're calling this initiative, we're giving you another reason to cry over spilled milk. Number 8, double down on the Department of Labor's failed child farm labor rules by requiring rural families to keep their kids indoors and protected with the doors locked from the hazards of tractors, ladders, and flashlights. Here, hang on to that for me. 7, to combat child obesity by declaring sugar a controlled substance to be regulated by the DEA. I'm going to skip down here a minute. Schools will observe meatless Mondays, followed by organic Tuesdays, vegan Wednesdays, non-dairy Thursdays, and French fry-free Fridays. And finally, down the list here, increase the desire to live longer by increasing the death tax. Purchase an entire fleet of drones for the EPA to conduct surveillance of all livestock operations. That's Ms. Jackson's squadron. And finally, the number 1 item on this administration's top 10 list for a second term with tongue-in-cheek, under the banner of Know Your Farmer, Know Your Food, require all producers to wear name tags at all times.
Well, looks like that one is already in place here in this audience.